Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been obviously quite a long time since I've updated and kind of rekindled the podcast, and I'm coming back to it, you know, after so long and getting back in touch, just with myself. And so I'm excited in the new kind of way that I'm kind of recording today as well. I'm using this new mic I got a long time ago, over a year and a half ago, but um, it's part of the process for me anyways. But hi guys, again, my name is Suzu. My real name is Kayla, just as another introduction. Welcome back to my channel once again. And so if you're new here, hello. And so I just wanted to say that, I appreciate all of you guys, being part of my content and just being there, and all the people who have been super supportive and stuff. And so it's been really nice to kind of sit back and come back to what I've been doing for so long. But today, obviously, we're going to be doing my podcast, my Healing Me podcast, and it would kind of be, I guess, another kind of step in the direction from where we've been in the beginning up until now. Of course, when I wrote a lot of the ideas that I had for this podcast, it was in the duration of the time where I was having a really rough patch in my life, just dealing with a lot of new changes, graduating, and dealing with, you know, truths that I didn't want. I was in denial a lot of times, considering a lot of friendships and the relationships I built, you know, inside, college, outside to gaming, etc. And, I've thought a lot about it over the past couple years, and I needed time. I feel like that's what I needed the most. And it was well worth it, even though it took a long time to come back into this podcast. It was a growth period that was really important that I had to face myself. And, in the time frame since then, I've been working outside of college, going through all the whole process. And we will go back to that, of course, but that's a different podcast. So for today, we're on episode 3. And for this topic for today, it's talking about accepting who you are. And so I know the last episode we were talking about moving forward, right? In that podcast, I know sometimes I feel like I'm all over the place, but for me, what I wanted to take most from that and moving forward was that you can only give that to yourself until you actually reflect and move forward. You have to process it and feel those things. And of course, we're going to go back to that a lot in this Healing Me podcast. A lot of it might be repetitive. It's all about going back, reflecting, seeing where you want to kind of, how should I say this? Um, how you want to move forward, what you want to take away from it, what you should do after that. And it's like it's not only just talking about emotions, it could be talking about um, interactions you have with people, things, kind of conflicts that you come across. And I've had a couple in the past couple months, and I'll talk about that some other time. But this is a podcast about healing me, talking about myself more. But what I want intentionally from this podcast is for anyone listening to take that time too and heal yourself. You are the only person in your life that can change that. And to move forward in any type of capacity for yourself, for you to be happy, for you to even go forward and choose what you want to do in any type of career, to how, I guess, hobbies, things you want, traveling, etc. It's all about what you want the most and what you put forth. And so that's what I want this Healing Me podcast to be again. And it's about you rekindling all those feelings within yourself to kind of gain knowledge about who you are. Once you do that and you're happy with who you are, to love yourself, which is really important too in this podcast that I haven't really touched base on a lot, but it is part of it. And so I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that's what this is all about. Healing Me podcast, talking about myself, but for you to kind of gain that too, understand that you're not the only one and that we can all heal in some type of capacity. And me sharing this is just a way for you to kind of think of it in that capacity too. And so, for again, this episode, it'll be episode 3, like I stated. It's talking about accepting who you are. And so, a lot of points that I want to make in this podcast for today, too, is that when you accept who you are, you eventually take care of yourself and you start building boundaries that you want to have. And so, for example, in the past, I want to talk about that. So this is me sharing my experience to talk about how I've gotten here, right? And so when I was in college, I would definitely say I was all in, as in, I was all in doing schoolwork. I was always focused on my experience of leadership. You know, um, in the process during this time frame, I did a lot of my hobbies too, but I focused solely on school. I rarely went out. I didn't go to parties. I didn't do any of that stuff in college. And um, I would say I guess the most exciting thing I've did, the most adventurous, explorative thing that I've done then was kind of hang out with friends here and there. And, it was really fun. I wish I did that more. And, that's a different podcast for a different day talking about how I should have gone in my early 20s. But, there's nothing I can do. I can only keep moving forward, right? Accepting what I've done and nothing bad, obviously. But in that time frame, I let a lot of people walk all over me. I let people, what I mean by that too is like, let's say, for example, being a leader. I've done a lot of different leadership positions, and I didn't stand my ground, and I always let people. Now, I'm not saying take advantage of me, but I never really voiced my opinions or voiced my thoughts, and that was a problem. And because I didn't voice that or tell people how I truly felt, if I felt hurt or I felt, I feel like my idea works best and give my opinion about it, or at least when I give my opinion, come back with, thought provoking processing, like telling them more details of why I think the way I do. And when I did those things back then, when I didn't do that, I just felt pushed over. I never really felt the time to, like be my own person almost. I feel like because of that, I never really knew what I did and what I actually liked in friendships to talking about what my true hobbies were, talking to people about, or at least introducing myself, making new friends. I always pushed myself back from that because I didn't know what were the right steps. And in the whole process of that as well, I end up not taking care of myself. I keep giving and giving my time to everyone and being nice. And, let's say, for example, too, when I say giving, going back to my leadership position, I would take the time to show up to school to give out items, because I was in, an executive position for a club, and, that was me kind of neglecting what I needed. And I just kept going. I did these things. And then you know what? I would end up becoming not resentful toward anyone, but just resentful towards time. And I would become resentful towards people. And it wasn't anybody directed. It was more like because I didn't know how to gauge where I was at, I kept thinking, I gotta do this. I gotta get time back. So when I come back into, my interviews in the future, building my skill sets, building who I am as a person, that I can talk about this thing and this will become my identity, right? That's what I kept thinking. Everything that I did in college was building my identity towards medicine. That is all I did. And when I did that and I kept giving to people, it was nothing towards them, right? But I just kept going every time, going all in. And I just became burnt out. That's all I did. And I just, like I said, I neglected taking care of myself and I would just become, very overwhelmed. And because of that, I would bottle up a lot of my emotions instead of building on it and actually talking to someone that I would explode. Sometimes I would come home so mad, I would slam stuff. I would slam shit. That's what I literally would do. I would come home, I would be like, the dishes aren't done. I'll be so mad, but I'm still doing it, but I'm washing it roughly. And that's not good. It's not good. And so what I want to take away from that kind of situation too was I accepted that. Eventually I accepted that, hey, some of the things I did had a lot of flaws. And I guess I haven't really talked about my flaws, but that could be something else, right? But when what I want to touch base again when thinking about it was I had to accept that this is not who I actually want to be. Yes, I want medicine, I want my leadership positions and my um I guess you can say my experience to speak for itself when I talk to someone. But when someone meets you, your introduction to them or how you build yourself or how you present yourself already says enough as it is, right? Irregardless, completely different, but we can talk about that later. But I just think that for me, once I eventually accepted that these are a part of who I am, yes, what I've done, what I have done, I've truly felt so happy with everything that I've done to giving back. That was what was important. Even though it wasn't to the capacity of what I wanted at the time, I wish at the time I was able to job shadow more. I wish I was honestly getting clinical experience. I just didn't have that. I didn't have the connections. Maybe I wasn't doing it right. That's okay. But everyone has different steps, and the way you build up to that, you allocate your time in the way you think fits best. And anyone who truly appreciates you for who you are will know that and recognize that and will give you that ample opportunity. So even if you're missing that, no matter what, you will get where you want to be. And so, I have to speak that into existence myself, accepting that everything I've built again up until now, my leadership positions to my job, to everything that I've done in volunteering, the right people will see that. And, when the right people started, or it went, let's see, there's a lot I want to build on that. So, like I said, when you build that for yourself, accepting what you present to yourself and how you are as a person, and who you are, the right things will come around and you'll build the right boundaries. You'll know, one, for sure, how you want to deal with things. Two, people who you want to surround yourself with, or people that you may have neglected. And I'll be honest, because I did these things and I always push things out of the door about hanging out with friends and always focusing on specific topics or things that I was doing towards my goal in my career, that I really neglected my friends at the time, the ones that were my true friends. I felt like because I didn't know my true boundaries and accepting that my presentation of what I wanted to be was that I pushed away the good friends that I should have kept close. And, I'm lucky. I would say that those people that have still been here right now are still who I still keep dearly in touch with. And I'm so grateful for that. And so, sorry, my allergies are still bad too, and I'm about to tear up, but um, they're the reasons, that I've still been where I'm at, my family, most of all. But also they're the ones that taught me to take care of myself for one. They are the ones who help me push through to accept exactly what I see in myself, the flaws, the beauty that I had. And that was, very touching. Oh, my allergies. But once I got through that stage and a lot of things were falling apart in my personal opinion, I will go back to it, and I'm really strong student. Nothing towards anybody else that has happened in the past. We are all adults now. We move forward and we all learn from it. And I learned a lot from those past relationships. No hate towards anybody. And all I want is people to take away from this. But I like to say too, when people are of the past, and this is one of the actresses, she said it, I don't go backwards in a book. And I'm just gonna take that. Priyanka, I think that's how you say her name. She is beautiful. Honestly, a lot of things that I watch and stuff like that, or even content creators, I take a lot of what I see. And I'll do my best if I'm talking in this podcast or making content that I'll try to go back and kind of reference them and give them more credit because they're the ones that said it. So, you know, I always will give credit in due diligence where you have to be, right? That's important. But anyways, that's something I digress. But with that, when I truly accepted what happened then, and when I got pushed away by people I thought that were important, that honestly they didn't understand me myself, but also because I didn't understand my boundaries, I let them push me to the end. And what ended up happening was they hurt me in that process. And I lost friendships that I thought I would have for years. I thought I was in a relationship that I thought would be present now. And I'm glad the way it ended. I'm glad it showed what it should have. I'm actually happy that people showed their true character and how this helped me build myself and accept who I was and the boundaries. In that really I was so insecure too, you know, let alone talking about imposter syndrome with my career to talking about how I felt about myself. But I had so much insecurities. I still do. but I've accepted them, right? I've come to a point where my flaws are my strong suits, and I can speak on it. I can be vulnerable about it, but I won't let people cross a boundary that they're not allowed to. I will not give myself to people any more than I already have, and this might be a different topic in the Healing Me podcast of talking about workplace kind of situation, and nothing towards, again, no harm towards anybody. It's what I experience and what I'm talking about. If you are in the process of where people are, you think they're talking bad about you, that's something you need to think about yourself and you're feeling hurt by it. So that's something I learned too about acceptance, was that I had a tendency to internalize a lot of things that were coming towards me, even towards how people were acting towards me, thinking that I'm the problem all the time. That's me people pleasing. That's me not pushing up the boundaries I needed. And that's something that I hope you guys think about too, that you need for yourself. And so when I fully kind of grasped everything towards the end of time, in a way, during that time period, I saw these things. And when I was trying to obviously move forward, accepting what I'm seeing of everything that I've been in denial about, I recognized a lot more of my emotions. I allowed myself to honestly feel them. I didn't, back then too, I was always worried about other people's boundaries in a way, sort of, but not my own. Um, that I would go to a lot of people. I would always seek advice. And you can only take what you want as your own advice. And when I was going through this whole process myself, when I had a problem, I would always go to people. I would always tell them. It's not that I'm telling them my business, but it's like me wanting advice. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I got to a point where I felt so bad kind of relying on other people that's what I thought I built my friendship with them. And I didn't want that. I know that my true friendships now, who everyone who has been part of it doesn't care, but I need to allow myself to feel these things to be able to come back and talk about it. And that's what I did then. Usually, like I stated, I would talk to my family. I would go to my older brother. I would go to all of my close friends at the time, ask for advice. I would call them crying, and I would tell them about what I was going through. And the crazy part of it was that those who still stick around have been here. And even if I'm not able to, because we're all adults now, in a way, we're in our workforces, it's hard to keep in touch, but they've been there all this time. And I'm just happy that I'm able to still be in my own place, but come back and still talk to them and still think that the friendship has always been the way it is. And those are people who understand your boundaries, the boundaries that you built, and accepting, again, who you are, them as your friend, but also when you accept yourself for building that boundary, you can go from there. And so when I was facing a lot of these issues at the time, I recognized a lot of my traumas. I did end up going to a resource at my university for counseling. Honestly, I did. And when I find more time, I want to go back. My therapist is amazing. I would give her a shout out all the time, but you have to find what's best for you. And I'm not going to give any more information than that. But other than that, my therapist, she's 100% the best. She allowed me just to feel, which a lot of therapists should allow that, right? They should let you feel, they should let you talk, they should hear you out, let you go through these process, right? Then again, I don't know. I'm not a therapist, but that's something what you need for yourself. And so when I went through that, I recognized everything. And then I found out what works for me. I knew what works, who I am, what I really needed to do, leaving things that didn't serve me behind, and accepting that not only, even if I want things to be this way, it's not meant to. And if people don't want to be part of it, let them be. I am the type of person to be loyal, and I'm the type of person to go back no matter what happened. So that's what I mean too when I didn't have the boundary. I would let people walk all over me and my feelings, don't care about anything. I would be the one apologizing to someone who wronged me, and they don't deserve that. Nobody does. The only person that deserves that is you and the right people around you after you build that boundary, right? And so to kind of cap this kind of podcast to the end, because I'm already rambling a lot, um, that's what I want. Our takeaway, right? the full takeaway from this episode itself. Again, just reiterating, this is episode 3, and so the topic was accepting who you are by building your own boundaries and taking care of yourself. And I know that I talked about career, etc., and I might have rambled, but hopefully it made sense. That's the whole part of this. Or the cool thing about my podcast is that I don't want to have edits, and a lot of people do that, right? Not just me, but for me, what I think, how I feel about it, is that there's no edits. This is just me rambling on about different things pertaining to this topic, and it's not edited. I feel like that's the human thing to do. Well, not humane. I don't think that's the right way I want to say that. There's a specific phrase. You'll see it what I put in the beginning when I edit later, as in editing to put it in to make it look cute. That's what I think. But either way, the biggest takeaway is once you move forward from the last episode, like I stated, you'll then get into the portion of where you accept what you see, accept what you want for yourself, and accepting who you are as a person. It could be your beauty, your flaws, everything about you. That's what builds you as an individual. It builds your personality. That's why everyone is so different. We're all extraordinary, and you should accept that, right? And so when you move forward or get to move forward from here on out, from healing, right? You start building the right boundaries for yourself, what you accept from other people, what you accept in the workforce, and anything like that moving forward. And once you do that, that's when you're able to take care of yourself and breathe. Of course, this is talking about emotions, talking about how you feel pertaining towards others if they've wronged you, right? But this is not talking about burnout and career finding and etc. Um, I do want to touch base on those kind of topics later on because I'm going through it myself. But I think it'll be a separate video. I'll show my face and everything like that. But for this podcast, it's just an audio for you to make it easier. So that is it from here. I only want to have this podcast on YouTube. I did in the beginning put it, that was like 2 years ago. I think, I don't remember. I did have it on Spotify, but I no longer want to put on there because I don't support them. So we're not putting it on there, but YouTube will be the main focus of where I upload the podcast. I kind of have to probably figure out how to put on Apple, but YouTube would be the main focus. We'll figure that out later. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning into this podcast episode. I appreciate you just listening and hearing me out in this podcast. It's all about healing me, but also healing you too, finding that recognition for yourself. So, anyways, any I know I always say this at the end too. I hope to keep moving forward and adding more. I'm gonna do my best because I'm trying to do something different. Maybe a potential career change a little bit. So we'll see. So that's why I'm going to try and touch base a lot more, allow myself to do more of my content creation that I want for people. So we'll do another one and I'll do an update with an introduction again because I think that's important. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Accepting Who You Are. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much again. And I'll catch you guys next time. Okay, bye.